Hey, skill setters, this is Mitch. It's about 1 o'clock here in Clovis, New Mexico. That's mountain time, and I'm going to try to do a as quick as I can, video just to introduce the concept of the Tired Landlord search. I mentioned this earlier this week, and I want to talk a bit more about that because a lot of folks don't realize just how much information there is out there with respect to landlords and tenants. And so I want to cover some of that. So what we're going to review here is I'm going to show you what it looks like when a landlord files for eviction. And just to be clear, in the state of Georgia, the act of filing for eviction is something called dispossessory. I used that term a couple of days ago and I didn't define it, so I apologize. So you'll hear people talk about dispossessory or dispo for short cases in Georgia, where you would hear people refer to in other states as evictions. So if he has a dispo against him, that means he's had an eviction against him. Or if I'm going to file a dispo, I'm filing an eviction. So dispo is eviction. And if you are a landlord in one of the counties in Georgia, let's pick on Gwinnett County, then when you want to file an eviction because your tenant's not paying you, you go to one of a couple of places. We're going to, for now, go to the magistrate, if I can spell it, I'm kidding, I told you I couldn't type, magistrate. And so this is the Magistrate Court. Well, this is the Clerk of Superior State and Magistrate Courts. And this is the website where, so when you file for an eviction or a dispo suit, you go to the court and you actually file, it's a lawsuit. You actually go and file a suit against your tenant that says, hey, they're not paying me what they promised, and they've either got to pay me or get out. And that lawsuit works its way through the court system in whatever county you're operating in. So in this case, this is the county of Gwinnett. So we're going to look at, and again, so far I did this right from Google because I wanted you to see that there's no special magic here. Anybody that has access to a browser and Google can get exactly where I'm about to go. There's no special login or password required. There's no fee, and that should be both comforting and terrifying to you. But so I happen to know my way around here, so I'm going to click on this Tyler Odyssey portal, which is a type of software vendor that provides software for courts to keep track of all this stuff. And I'm going to do Smart Search. And in the interest of time, I'm going to speed right over to the case number. So it's going to be the last two digits of the year, an M for magistrate, and then a case number. I'm going to just do this real fast, 29, and I'm going to use, it's actually 9297, but I'm going to put an asterisk here because it can wildcard. You see what that means in a minute. Ha, okay, you'll get an error. Let's try that again. Okay, that's better. So it shows me, because I did a wildcard on the last digit, it shows me the last 10 matching case numbers. It shows me 90 through 99. And so these are the cases. These are all the cases, and these are the case numbers for all those cases that fit, well, for those specific cases in Magistrate Court. So you'll see that there's 5 dispossessories and 5 what are called statements of claim. We can ignore the statements of claim. They have nothing to do with us. There's some other kind of lawsuit. But notice these dispossessories. This one, for example, is pending, and it shows the party name. This one is dismissed. That one's dismissed. This one's dismissed. Let's turn our attention to this one here, 9297. It's a dispossessory in Magistrate Court, and it's pending, which means it has not been resolved yet. So the two parties are still in dispute, which is what I want, because I want to find people who are still actively trying to get their tenants out but haven't done it successfully yet. So let's click on that. And in a minute, hopefully less, we will see, and it is a little slow. I mean, I recognize that it's 3 o'clock, 3:05 Eastern time, so this is prime time for people in Georgia who are accessing this system. But just keep in mind, this system is 24/7. So if I really wanted to get this work done, I wouldn't do it now. I would do it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, or I would do it earlier in the day so that I wouldn't be competing with people who are actually trying to use the system live. But look at what it shows me. It shows me the case number. I knew that already. The court, I knew that. It shows me when they filed it. It shows me the party's name. This is the plaintiff, which is going to be the landlord. The defendant's going to be the tenant. So this is presumably the owner of the property. This is their physical address. This is not the address of the property that they're selling. This is the address of the landlord. And I don't feel bad putting this in a video because, again, this is publicly available. This is not special privileged information. Anybody who cares to go on there can see this information. The attorneys, in this case, it says pro se, which is Latin for effectively they're doing it themselves. So they are their own attorney for this. And then here's the defendant, George Sutton. And this 6726 Trafalgar Square is the address of the property. So now I've got the name of the landlord, I've got the address of the landlord, I've got the address of the property. I have the name of the defendant, the tenant too, but I don't care so much about that. What I care about is this address. So if I wanted to, I could research this address, see if it's a house that I'm interested in, and if it is, then I might direct mail to this address or skip trace this person and try to find information about them so that I can reach out to them and say, hey, Michelle, I'd like to buy your house. Now, I mentioned a couple of days ago that some systems, this is not one of them, but some systems will actually show you the filing that, in this case, Michelle would have submitted to the court when she filed her dispossessory suit. And that paperwork specifies how much they owe you, how much George Sutton owes her. And so if it's a large amount, let's say it's, by my best estimation, I assume that the property is maybe $1,000 in rent per month. If I could see the amount that is owed to Michelle, and it's $8,000, that tells me that the tenant hasn't paid in at least 7 or 8 months. And that's obviously bad. It's why she's filing, but it also means she let it go for 7 months without doing anything, which is the hallmark of a bad landlord. And so she probably needs to be saved from herself if that were the case. And I would be interested in putting an offer to her because she's feeling pain, right? She's walking around with $8,000 of unearned, unclaimed income that she's probably never going to get if that were this case. And so if I come along and say, hey, how about I take this mess off your hands, she might be a bit more interested in hearing what I have to say than if the tenant were just wonderful and paying on time and everything were great. These are not great situations. Great situations don't end up in dispossessory court. If you have a great relationship with your landlord and tenant, then they're never going to show up here. If they're here, it's because there's a problem. And the question is, how big is that problem? And can I, as an investor, come in and possibly solve that problem while getting paid? So, but I want to point out a couple of other quick things while we're here. This was filed March 6th of 2020. And so for those of you listening to this, if you remember it's now August. So this is 5 months ago. In March, they were just starting to talk about COVID-19. They hadn't really shut things down yet, and the CARES Act had not hit. So things were still fairly okay. So these are people who filed before things got bad, before people started losing jobs, before businesses started shutting down, before whole states were locked down. And so these poor folks filed, and then things got horrible, and then in many cases the court shut down and you couldn't file, and everything ground to a halt. And yet these people are still waiting to get their house back. They don't get any sort of discount or rebate because COVID-19 happened. So if they needed to get this tenant out back in March, here we are in August, and you can imagine that they really want to get this thing resolved because it's been months and months and months, and they're probably not getting paid. If they weren't getting paid back in March, they're probably not getting paid, haven't been paid since then. So however bad it was back here, it was bad enough for them to file. The fact that it's still pending 5 months later means that these people are probably suffering and they could probably benefit from some help. So I'm highlighting this not because I expect you to dive into Gwinnett County, Georgia and start buying up properties. I'm showing you this because Gwinnett is not atypical. Pretty much every modern county in the U.S. has something that looks like this, some way for people to enter in eviction / dispossessory data online, especially now since they can't physically go to the courts. So in your market, I would recommend that you find out how this system is set up. Ask your landlord or your landlord or a landlord-tenant attorney, how do people file evictions in this town? And they'll tell you, and wherever they tell you to go, see if there's an online system there that lets you see who's filed. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of records in this system. I'm not going to obviously go through all of them, but if you did take the time to look at some of them, you would find people like this. It didn't take me very long. I mean, I knew this one existed, but the truth is, these are not hard to find. I just picked this one, but the truth of the matter is, there were 10 records. It's going to make me go back to the beginning. There were 10 records on that page, and I just picked one out of the 5 dispos. So I could have picked this one. I could have picked that one. Well, I guess I did pick that one. I could have picked this one. So my point is, there's just in this tiny little snapshot, just these 10 cases, there's plenty of stuff for me to investigate and see if there's an opportunity and see if there's a landlord in need that I can talk to. There's not much point in talking to the dismissed because that means that it got resolved. Either the tenant moved out or the tenant paid, but somehow the case got resolved and has been dismissed. I want the pendings. I want the ones that are actively present, because that means that there's still someone feeling some pain, specifically the landlord. And that means there's an opportunity for me to do business with them. So I just wanted to show you this to kind of hopefully pique your curiosity and get you thinking about what's going on in your market. I guarantee you there's something like this in your market that would let you see this. And for the record, hardly anybody, if you've never heard of this before, that should tell you something. Hardly anybody is going after these folks right now. They're going after the same people everybody else is going after. And that leaves all of these poor folks to those of us who know how to get them. Be mindful that these landlords, the property's not listed for sale. They haven't even thought about talking to an agent. They're not even thinking necessarily about what they'd sell it for. They haven't figured out a price. They're so far early in the process that they're just starting to figure out, you know what, I may not want to be a landlord anymore. And they're at that decision point where they decide, do I stay with this or do I do something else? And if you can be there and help guide them through that and say, hey, look, you know what, maybe landlording isn't for you, then perhaps you can structure an excellent deal for yourself and get them out of a bad spot and move on. So that's what I wanted to cover. As I mentioned earlier this week, I'm going to be doing a deeper dive. Just for the record, this is what I'm doing. I'm not doing it in Gwinnett. Honestly, I'm not going to show you the county that I'm doing it in, because I don't want a bunch of you out there competing with me. But the truth is, there's hundreds of counties out there that you could do this in. So there's plenty to go around. But I am specifically going after tired landlords, people who have filed suit against their tenant and they've been waiting, in this case, 5 months for an answer. And she still hasn't gotten an answer, for the record. It's not like she got an answer today. It could be another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months before she gets this person out. Who has 10 months of rent saved up that they can afford to pull out of savings and cover their expenses because the tenant's not paying them? Hardly anybody. So it's only a matter of time before landlords start to keel over because they're not getting paid. And before they do that, perhaps some smart investors can come in, swoop in, save the day, get them out of the business of landlording and sell that property to somebody who actually can benefit from it and who knows what they're doing. So that's the concept of Tired Landlord. If you think you might be interested in more in-depth obviously there's no point in me trying to even attempt to cover all of the aspects of this in a half-hour call. Even a 1 hour call is not sufficient. It's going to take some in-depth hands-on work, but some of the best deals we've ever gotten are from Tired Landlords. And so that's what I'm working on now. And if you are looking for deals and can't find any, you should know that that's where a lot of them are hanging out. So hopefully this helped at least help you see where the opportunities lie. And if you have an interest in getting more in-depth information, reach out to Karina, let her know. We're trying to get a head count, see how many people are interested in doing this. But I'm happy to cover this because it's been very, very productive for us over the last 20 years. All right, that's it for today, and hopefully this was helpful for you. If all of this is foreign and you've never seen any of this before, I'm happy because that means I'm showing you stuff that no one else is. But this is where the real deals are coming from. I haven't even gotten into the whole notion of owner financing because I don't want to make your heads explode. But for now, consider what I've said. Take a look at your own county, and if you have any interest, let us know.